Hello, everybody. This is Noah and John, and we are with UrbanDigs. And Johnny, today we are talking Manhattan. And I got an old friend. I'm not saying you're old, Louise. We're an old friend, old colleague. I know you a long time. Okay,
True.
Louise.
I have more hair than you. I am older.
You have a lot more hair than I do. A lot of people do. Louise Phillips Forbes. This is gonna be fun. Louise Phillips Forbes at Brown Harris Stevens, aka Wheezy. In case you didn't know that, that's what we call her. 35 years in the business, 6 billion of deals closed. Talk about experience. Talk about success. Talk about sassiness. You got it all. You are a wonderful person. I love you. Thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us today. And I'm going to get right to it, Louise. I want to know, the people want to know, Johnny over there wants to know, what is happening in the New York City real estate market right now?
Woo, Lordy be. Well, let's just start. Listen, I even thought even September was funky in 2025, but as you could feel the energy building at the end of the year, our contract signs proved that. Let's just start with new development. I mean, it is literally, you cannot build it fast enough. You look at the 3rd Avenue corridor, where there's a project that Josh Young is working on for Brown Harris Stevens for Jeff Levine, and they're looking at $3,000 a foot on a blend.
Wow.
And then you can, like, through the rear, you can look at what's happened on the 2nd Avenue corridor that Naftali and the other development projects in the 70s and also the 80s. You know, you can't move them fast enough. And I would just say that lastly, 1122 Madison, have you been tracking that little tiny building on between 83rd and 84th? They have done 270 million contract signs in 3 weeks, January and February. 267. And that is not at $3,000 a foot. That's like more like $6,000 a foot. So I would just say that you build it, they will come. That is true for New York City today.
Unbelievable. What about the resale market, Louise?
Well, that is sort of, we always track. And again, the news is usually about 6 to 9 weeks behind the day. You know, they're like a day late and a dollar short. Shh. They need to be listening to your podcast. But open houses, you know, I'm seeing 20 to 40 parties coming to open houses. And that is a trend in itself. And that started in January. I was in a blizzard. Do you remember the blizzard that we had? And somebody was like, could you show me this townhouse? It's a $20 million townhouse. And it's state of emergency and the wind is going. And I had a penthouse for 2.7 where I was the 5th appointment that day. So, you know, whether it's the snowstorm, the blizzard, state of emergency, you know, multiple bids are happening. And I would call this time that we're in, it's from freezing to flow market. It's a freeze to flow market that Jared in our office, Anton, you know, quoted
Love
that
Jared.
today. And he's just a mini Rain Man. He's so smart. But it's true if you think about this sort of visually that we're in a frozen moment. Our market didn't collapse during COVID, but it kind of froze, and it's been weird and unpredictable. But we are in a flow and a thawed out zone.
Interesting.
This is super. First of all, yes, we love Jared, and I think that's a great analogy because you're right. We were literally frozen during COVID, right? You really physically could not transact. You couldn't see anything. It was just like the market stopped and then it reopened. And it's been kind of funky ever since. But Louise, you bring up a really interesting point, which is you can't sell these new devs fast enough, and they're not making enough of them. And I'm wondering, in the freeze and flow analogy, are you seeing any flow going from the potential new dev buyers into resale? Are you seeing people
of course. I mean, look,
a new dev going to a co-op?
Yeah, there are a few things I'll talk about development and kind of a sector when we talk about the market and the cause and effect. There's, you know, we're a vertical urban market. Unlike the tri-states. The tri-states during COVID, those markets went 25, 30, 35%. We kind of like, we didn't collapse, but we were not predictable. And we've had some movement and some pullback and all these things that we track, or I track when I do analysis, because I want the texture of what happened in 2023, or I should say didn't happen, and what's happening now when I'm telling owners what to price their apartments for. But one of the things about inventory that there's a an unintentional consequences that occurred in conversions. And I specialize in conversions. When the rent law in 2019 changed, where they were trying to protect the rent controlled and rent stabilized for, landlords, the unintentional consequences around the rentals was conversions. We used to only need 15% to declare a plan effective, and today you need 51. You cannot get those deals done. So we are probably missing about 18,000 units in the market. If you look at 4,000 to 4,300 per year, I had the 11-minute building, 393 West End Avenue. It was submitted on June 19th, 11 minutes before 5 p.m. to the AG, and we're the 11-minute building. They approved our OP as a result before the law changed.
Before the law passed, 11 minutes.
It's like Indiana Jones style, like reaching under the wire.
Wow.
So, and then you have all this stuff going on. Like there was an article today in the New York Times about a landlord in the Bronx has 2 units that are vacant, and he needs to renovate it for $150,000, but he's better off putting his money in a treasury and just holding on to the asset until the policies change, because he doesn't get the credit and the sweat equity and and that's also up against our new mayor really pushing the policy for rent freeze for 4 years, which I don't think will pass, but it's just unnecessary pressure, and it isn't the way the world operates.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, that the 2019 rent regs policy has sowed the seeds of today's environment, so to speak, and kind of what we're seeing right now is a result of what happened 7 years ago. It takes that kind of time, right? We know there's limited inventory. We know that when I look at pipeline and I look at going ahead, it's not like there's a lot of stuff coming on. I mean, is that a correct statement, Louise? That there's not.
Look, I mean, you're the guy that tells me that there are 5,317 units on the market, and I mean, I follow those things, and thankfully, because I'm dyslexic, I remember those unnecessary details in my brain, and I pull it out at moments like this. However, yes, I would say that inventory as we know it, you can see absorption that's happening. As I said, that energy in market, November, December, things had been on the market for a year, for 390 days. They are now in contract. So absorption is happening because choice is limited.
Right.
And we have a pent up execution happening in January because we had an entire year and a half of people on the fence about buying, an entire pool of highly educated buyers. So I have been photographing my listings in rain, sleet, or snow since December to be prepared for January. I'm negotiating on a piece of property right now, and my seller is like, look, we'll wait for the spring market if we can't make this deal. I was like, honey, we are in the spring market.
Right.
So how do we as agents prepare our buyers in this kind of environment? I've got 35 years and a lot of cycles of this market. And, we have to really create and help. We have to back into the choices for our buyers. We have to, I was with Elizabeth, my teammate, was with a client, and she's like, I've identified these floor plans for these buyers. I was like, well, let me close my eyes and go up and down the vertical of West End Avenue and Central Park and Riverside. I'll tell you the buildings to pull, and we'll write a letter to those owners. So we have to find the market, and you have to incentivize them, because sometimes people don't know it is time to make a change.
Yeah, I'm hearing this a lot. Inventory is low. It's been going down for about 5 or 6 years now after the pandemic. It's a tight environment. I could see it in my charts. I am hearing anecdotally that I got buyers. I can't find them anything. So are buyers getting seriously frustrated right now? I mean, is this environment in place for the foreseeable future with limited inventory?
Unfortunately, I think so. But I will also just tell you, we have this whole NAR thing that has been going on. And I have a predicament that I was in this weekend after listing an apartment for about $3 million, where I had multiple bids. In 3 days, we had 30 people through the door. And, it's Chelsea. It's a beautiful loft. It's 2-bedroom. It's not convertible 3-bedroom. It's 2-bedroom. And I had multiple offers, and it was really well priced, 2,895. It probably could have been 2,950. And I got an offer from a broker who I don't know, who didn't even call me to give me the offer. He just submitted it to me, and I found it in my email. And it didn't have a REBNY. It didn't have any info. It's a condo. Didn't have any income. It had a pre-approval, once a financial contingency. And I knew nothing about this person. Meanwhile, the other two people had dissertations and love notes about the apartments. Now, I know some markets don't allow that, but it helps me to understand the relationship with the broker. We accepted a deal with a broker who has done 5 transactions with that family, who knows them extremely well. And I was able to give texture to my owners. That's valuable way of approaching it. On top of it, as it turns out, that broker that made the offer for 275, the buyer was very frustrated. She called me directly and she said, "Why didn't we get the deal?" And I said, well, you, how many apartments have you seen? She said 55. And I was like, "So do you think that this is worth 2750? And she said, "No, but that's what the broker told me to do." And I was like, "But what's your instinct?" So it's important that if you're signing an agreement, that you as an agent have a fiduciary responsibility to collaborate, partner, talk, bulldoze, finesse, and don't just send an email. That is the value that I would advise, that, everybody loves to text, but talking and stories make matches.
It's such a wonderful point. And it's one of the interesting things is so many other professional agents like yourself who are at the top of their game make the same point in a different way, which is like, this is a personal business. Like, you're in a relationship business, and it's not a text driven thing. Texts are helpful, but at the end of the day, you got to pick up the phone. You got to talk to people. Face-to-face interaction is key. And I want to dig into that a little bit, Louise, because you mentioned some things that I think are really awesome when you talk about how you strategize with clients. I'm just wondering, how do you use your open house traffic, seasonal patterns, and the real-time market feeling to really sort of hone those strategies for your sellers and your buyer clients?
I mean, we back into how we schedule weeks in advance. I mean, like, I have a method and a formula when I list an apartment that I talk to my owners about. Okay, listen, we're going to do 5 open houses in the first 2 weeks. And if we, often I'm pretty data driven, thanks to UrbanDigs. And it's also my nature. I mean, I'm a developer's broker, so I am very analytical in the way that I approach things. And sometimes when I do my analysis, I go all the way back to what's happened in that building pre-pandemic. So they have in one spot the history, because they're like, I don't want to hear, well, in 2021, my next door neighbor, they actually got this much money. And I was like, okay, but interest rates were 3.28%, respectfully. And, they had a brand new kitchen. You have an old kitchen. So it's able to be able to convert that information. That's why human people are important, not just the numbers. We have to bring them alive with the story. But how I stay on those patterns is we plan our open houses accordingly. Like, I have 3 offers on this piece of property in Chelsea. I am not doing, as a courtesy to the person we accepted an offer, I'm not doing any more open houses. I will take appointments and show for backup. But now I've freed my time to focus my energy somewhere else, and my team's energy.
Very, very interesting.
So that's one point. And I think that those patterns is that we schedule as we get to May. I already am talking about, we're going to do Sunday, Monday open houses because people start to go to their beach houses. There are all these patterns that I have over 35 years developed or stole from somebody that I found to be effective in creating the rhythm of sense of urgency that I want to give each listing.
I like the whole 5 open houses in the first couple of weeks scenario, because you're right. Not everyone's around over the weekend, and you might miss out on some people. So you're covering yourself a little bit by doing that extra couple of open houses there. And the first couple of weeks is when the market discovers the property anyway. That is your optimal period to create urgency, which is like our job, right? Is let's create urgency from a non-urgent situation. So
and the other thing I would say that I found that I've used certain data, you know, we all sometimes like we have that love-hate relationship with Street Easy. And I would say that I have been tracking very closely days on market and saves convert versus days on market appointments versus days on market messages. And there is a direct correlation to the number of appointments. And if I don't have 30 appointments in 10 days, 2 weeks, maybe if I'm going to be gracious on a holiday or something, then I'm missing the market.
Right. I mean, this almost kind of parlays me into the next question. That might have almost answered the next question. I mean, I'm curious because agents are instant gratification minded people. That's just how New York City works. It's a fast-paced market. So I'm just curious, like what actions can agents do immediately to increase the chances of success with listings or with clients?
I mean, look, I think the bottom line is that the first thing that John mentioned earlier is that we are, you know, I thought when I got into real estate and I told my brother, I was like, I got a job in real estate. He's like, you know, it's commission only. I was like, oh shit, no, I don't. But what is true is it's not the brick and mortar, the architecture, it's a business of relationships. So what I learned early, which I didn't know initially, because I felt it was a very competitive market, that I was not ever comfortable thinking about myself as a salesperson because it feels cheesy to me. But as an educator and as a person that could be of service, if I operate from that, then there's an attraction that happens in my business. So that was a first piece of how I decided to operate. And then I would say that creating choices starts with the relationships from agents. I price my apartments by calling 25 agents. Hey, buddy, you're in contract. What are you in contract for? Do you mind sharing? I have a listing that's coming in here. Do you have buyers? I will communicate with you in about 10 days. Now I've done a solid by him. He's done a solid by me. And if I don't know those people, I start off with assuming that transparency is possible.
Love that.
Love that stuff. I just want to, Louise, we're running out of time. So I got to get in the question that we always ask at the end, especially for people who are literally sitting at the top of the mountain, looking to the gurus at the top, right?
Please.
What's the one, aside from this being a commission business, what's the one thing you wish you would have known as a fresh agent right out of the box, you know, heading in now? What's that one piece of advice you'd give to the new agent who's starting today?
Get out. Don't sit. Don't wait for somebody to call you. Go to every listing you can, look at things, go to open houses on Sunday, make yourself busy and make yourself known. Approach somebody that you admire and say, can I support you? You don't need to pay me. Just want to be in the presence of your mojo. Like I have somebody I'm thinking about hiring. I'm like, I'm working on Sunday, March 7th. Do you want to hang out and spend the day with me? I want to see what that person's like. So the vice versa. And by the way, I hope like 900 people don't call me to hang out with me on March 7th. But then the last thing was what I would say to you, I said earlier, is that buyers and sellers will come and go. But our colleagues, we will be here for decades with one another. So don't burn your bridges. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Listen, I can be a bulldog when I need to be, but I'm only doing it in behalf of my client, not to degrade or dismiss or be disrespectful or, you know, flex my muscles of experience. So those are my pieces of advice.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I love the whole collaboration element. I love the whole intel gathering element. We hear consistent themes with that last question from all of these top producers that we're talking to, and they all say the same thing. You gotta meet other brokers. You got to start relationships because you're gonna need them at some point. And I love how you make those 25 calls and you tell them, you got any buyers over there? Great. I will be in touch. You're already doing the marketing before it's even on the market.
Yep.
That's how you get it done. There is a formula for success. And we see the consistencies with all of the top brokers on this show. And it's just a pleasure to watch and hear how simple it is if you can do it, but you got to do it. You got to grind and you got to do it.
Energy. You've got to have a thick skin and you've got to I had somebody tell me, like, I'll call you when I get board approval. And I was like, excuse me, you have an all cash deal and you're over the asking price? All right, well, I already got that information from the other broker that was outbid next to me sitting in my office, but that's disappointing, So
Right.
yeah, I always operate with that and hopefully lead by example.
Fantastic. Well, there's a reason why you're 35 years successful in this business and over $6 billion in closed deals. That is respect. That is just an incredible achievement. And thank you for taking some time out of your very, very busy day to talk and share these thoughts and these wisdoms with our audience. Hopefully agents learn something. If you are listening today, reach out to Louise, say thank you, introduce yourself. You never know when you're going to do a deal with her, or you need some intel from her. She will give you some intel that may help you out. So Louise Phillips Forbes, Brown Harris Stevens, thank you so much. That is John Walkup. I am Noah Rosenblatt. This has been Talking Manhattan, and we will catch you next time. Cheers, everybody.
Ciao, ciao.